Hello, welcome to the channel. We have some exciting news for Pokemon Pocket with a new set just around the corner, Extra-Dimensional Crisis. I just wanted to talk about the new cards that have been revealed and what I think might be meta, what will be good and perhaps worth using uh, when this comes out. So just going through the cards in the way that they're revealed in the trailer, we'll start off with Buzzwole EX, which is a grass type with 140 HP. It's got two attacks. The first one does 30 damage for 2 colorless energy, and the second one does 120 for 2 grass type and 1 colorless. And the second attack, you cannot use it twice in a row. You have to wait a turn before using it again. And obviously, it does need some sort of downside to being a basic that can do 120 damage with 3 energy, but it feels like a little bit too much of a downside for that one. So I don't know if this is going to see too much use, but with the supports with grass types like the Leaf Cape and Erika's, this could certainly be strong. I just don't really see it being super meta. So yeah, that's what I think of Buzzwole EX. And then moving on to Nihiligo, 70 HP, and it's got a cool ability that makes poison do plus 10 damage, and then a 2-cost attack that does 30 damage and poisons. So because this is just a ability and it's effective on the bench, it's splashable into just like any poison deck, though of course most of them are dark anyway. I think that this could actually make poison like a really strong and viable deck and like archetype. So that's certainly something to watch out for. But the downside of poison is that there's so many ways to get around it, just from obviously switching to the bench, but then also cards like Arceus and Pokemon Center Lady and Comfey especially. I think especially Comfey and Arceus, like if you're going against those decks as a poison type deck, there's not much that you can really do. Like pretty much the main gimmick of your deck is just completely void. So I think that it makes it really tough to use those decks in like tournaments where you really don't want to lose that much, and if you just get paired with like decks with Arceus and Comfey, it's really hard for you to win those. But I think with this card, we might see poison more on like the ranked ladder, and I think this will definitely be good with Paldean Clodsire EX. And moving on to Guzzlord EX, with 170 HP, it's got 2 attacks. The first one is the really exciting one, Grindcore for 2 colorless energy. It does 30 damage, and it basically has the Team Rocket Grunt effect, where you flip a coin until you get tails, and for each heads, you discard an energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. The other one, Tyrannical Hole, does 120 damage for 4 energies, and I believe it's 3 dark energy, 1 colorless. The first attack is really what's exciting about this one, and honestly scary. The fact that it's colorless means that you could put it into just about any deck. Of course, the downside to this card is the 4 retreat cost, but there are ways to get around that with Solgaleo from the last set. You could put this into a metal deck with like Solgaleo. Of course, then you'd need something to deal with Oricorio, but that's certainly a possibility, and there's another card in the set that we'll get to later, or actually, no, just next. Celesteela with 120 HP. Its ability allows for basically a free switch between Ultra Beast in the active spot and an Ultra Beast on the bench. So using this with Guzzlord, you get around that 4 retreat cost. Celesteela's attack is really nothing special, just 3 colorless energy for 100 damage, and then a coin flip that if you get tails, it does nothing. So not super reliable, mostly just a Pokemon that you want on the bench. You don't want to be starting with this at all. Now, of course, the downside of this is that the free switch, it has to be both Ultra Beasts. Like, you can't have a Ultra Beast in the active spot and some other random card in the bench and use the ability for that. They have to both be Ultra Beasts. So this will be good for those decks, but not super splashable into other things. And moving on then, we have Pheromosa with 70 HP. Its attack Jump Blues does 20 damage to the active Pokemon and then 20 damage to a Pokemon on the bench. Being a grass type, it does have access to those grass type items like the Leaf Cape and Erica, but this one, I don't know, it seems kind of mediocre to me personally. Might be good with Decidueye, but didn't really blow me out of the water or get me too excited. The next one did though, and that's Kartana. Again, a grass type, 60 HP. Its just attack Thrash Metal does 40 damage, and this is essentially like a grass type Farfetch'd, which is going to be great in grass type decks because of, like I've been mentioning, the grass type had great support with the Leaf Cape and Ericas, and this gives the grass type just like great momentum for the beginning of the game, which is typically where grass types tend to lack. Like they're good in the late game, but it tends to be like strong stage 2 Pokemon that take a little while to get going. So this gives you something to put up front and kind of wall and deal damage with, and with Leaf Capes and Ericas, it could stay in there for a while you build up that whatever it is, Venusaur, Decidueye EX, maybe even a Torterra on the bench. So Kartana, I'm definitely super excited about. I think that'll be a great addition to grass type decks. Moving on to the next one, Xurkitree, another kind of mediocre one, 100 HP, and its attack costs 3 energy to deal 60 damage and confuses the target, which is like kind of just a mid effect, and 60 damage is not a whole lot. The energy cost for this is a whole lot for what it's doing. It's really not worth it at all. I would be shocked if this card really saw any play. And the next one we have is Naganadel with 100 HP. This is the only stage 1, I believe, of the bunch. It's one attack, Electro House, does 40 damage and poisons for 1 energy. And that's a good way to apply poison for that Nihilego. But I don't really think that there's going to see much use because it's a stage 1, and like there's better ways to apply poison. Like I said before with Paldean Clodsire, I think that'll be the deck that you want to use Nihilego with, because you can apply poison with the Wooper and then do like the 60 damage plus extra damage with the Clodsire, and I think that's a lot better than just having a stage 1 that does 40 damage and poisons. So I don't know that this will really see any use, to be honest. And the next one we have is Stakataka with 110 HP and 1 attack, Brass Rock, which does 40 damage, and it makes it take minus 20 damage from attacks the next turn. This costs 2 energy, and yeah, again, just I don't really see this being very good at all. With these like wall Pokemon, you don't really want to have to out in the active spot so that you can put energy on the bench. But for this one to be an effective wall, you have to put energy onto it and 2 energy. So you're just kind of like have it out in the active spot for 2 turns while you're powering it up, and that's just not what you want to do. And 110 HP, I don't know. I don't see this really being useful at all. And moving on, we have Blacephalon for 100 HP and 1 attack, Beat Punk, which costs 3 energy, does 130 damage and 70 damage to itself. So this is supposed to be kind of like a kamikaze kind of thing where it does a high damage but also probably ends up killing itself. And I'll talk about this later when we get to Lusamine, but I mean, I could see it being somewhat useful, but overall don't really have high hopes for this one, to be honest. Next we have something that I am actually really excited for, and that's the Tapu Koko EX with 130 HP and 2 attacks. The first one, Plasma Hurricane, for 1 energy, does 20 damage, and you attach a lightning energy from the energy zone to the Pokemon. And its other one, Mach Bolt, for 3 energy, just does 90 damage. This is really good. It's a basic Pokemon too, so it's a really good one to just start off with, and pretty quickly, if you're going second, it's your second turn, you're going to be able to swing for 90 damage, and that's really strong. And I also wanted to talk about Zeraora with this one because skipping ahead a little bit, but I think that both of them can fit into a deck that I've really been wanting to make work for a while. Zeraora has 90 HP. Its ability allows it to attach lightning energy to itself on the first turn, and its attack, Lightning Claw, for 2 energy does 50 damage. So I'm not really sure if the first turn is like the first turn that Zeraora is active or on the bench, or if it's just like you have to start the game with Zeraora for the ability to work. Either way, I think both of these are good ways to like ramp energy from your very first turn. And I think that that could pair very well with Genetic Apex Raichu, actually. This is a card that I think is pretty cool, but I've never really been able to make it work. Basically, with Tapu Koko, you could get the 3 energy onto it, and then use Lieutenant Surge to get the energy from Tapu Koko to Alolan, to just regular Raichu, and then you deal 140 damage with Raichu and discard the energy. The strategy there would be to use Tapu Koko to get like an early KO, and then they switch in their EX Pokemon, and then you go to Raichu and deal that 140 damage, hopefully take out the EX Pokemon. Another option with Raichu, I think Raichu works really well with Luxray. And that's because with Volkner, you can take energy from the discard pile and attach it to Luxray. Luxray does, I believe it's 110 damage to just any Pokemon. I think it can attack the bench too, so it's pretty strong, but it's never really seen too much play. I think with this way to get like energy going with the lightning type or with the electric type from the like very first turn of the game, I think that could make both of these cards a lot more viable. So I'm really excited to try those out. So the next card that's shown off is Type Null, which is kind of just like a standard basic Pokemon, and I'm assuming we'll get a Silvally or a Silvally EX that will actually have some sort of interesting strategy or ability or attack or something. But that's all we have for Type Null right now. Then we see Lusamine, which is interesting, and this one is that if your opponent has at least 1 point, then you can attach 2 energy from your discard pile to an Ultra Beast. So my first thought was that like you could use this with Blacephalon, who Blacephalon's kind of whole thing, if you remember, is to deal a lot of damage, but deals a lot of damage to itself. So if you do that, let Blacephalon die, you can use Lusamine to get that energy back. Now the problem with this is that I think Blacephalon's the only fire type Ultra Beast, and it requires fire type energy. So you could only really use Lusamine to chain that into another Blacephalon. Being able to do 130 damage 2 turns in a row is pretty good, but I mean the problem is that then by the end of that, like you're going to be down 2 points. So hopefully you were able to get some important KOs and win the game with that. If not, you're going to need like another Pokemon then to finish off the game. I don't know, maybe Turtonator or something like that. I think that could definitely be a viable strategy, but it's kind of risky because you're like putting yourself at a loss there. Maybe with Mars, there's some plays that you could definitely do with that. But because Lusamine is like tied to Ultra Beasts, I don't know how good it's really going to be because a lot of Ultra Beasts are like different types. One thing I was thinking is that you could use Lusamine with Darkrai and Guzzlord. Basically start out with Darkrai, attach energy so that you can like do the pings with Darkrai, let Darkrai die, and bring that energy over to Guzzlord for Guzzlord's attack. That could be a strategy. I'll certainly try that out. But yeah, I think Lusamine is interesting, but it's a little bit limited in what you could really do with it because of its tie to Ultra Beast. But there is another card that we'll talk about later that I think could also be very good with Lusamine. And the next card that's shown off is Alolan Diglett. Again, another like just basic, but standard basic Pokemon. Well, not exactly. It does have, something interesting going for it, but like we're gonna have to see what Dugtrio is to see if this is actually anything worth using. So Then after that we see Shinotic, which is actually interesting. I'm not sure how good it'll be, but certainly interesting. With 90 HP, it has an ability, Illuminate, where you basically, once during your turn, you can draw a random Pokemon. And its attack, Gentle Slap, for 2 colorless energy, does 40 damage. So this is easily splashable into just about any deck, and it's going to be like really useful for those stage 2 decks. But the problem is that this itself is a stage 1 Pokemon, so you're at least taking up 2 deck slots for this, and then you have to like place the pre-evolution, wait a turn, place the evolution. So it's kind of a lot of setup to get this. I mean, it's not a lot of setup, but it's like, I feel like sometimes you'd rather just have like a Pokemon Communications or something like that. And with how limited deck space is in this game, I think like, I don't know, you'd rather have other cards than just these two, just to make sure that like your deck actually works and you draw what you need. And the last card that we're talking about today is one that wasn't revealed in the trailer, but it will be like an event Pokemon, and that is Ultra Necrozma EX. This is our first Dragon-type EX. It has 150 HP and 2 attacks. The first one, Photon Claw, for 3 colorless energy, does 60 damage. And the second one, Shoegaze, for 2 psychic energy plus 2 steel-type energy, does 120 damage, and discards the top 5 cards in each player's deck. Pretty crazy effect there. Obviously, it's going to be difficult to actually get that to work with 4 energy and 2 different energy types. The way that like first came to my mind was just to run Steel type as the type for the deck, and then have like Gardevoir to bring the psychic types. Of course, then you'd have to keep Ultra Necrozma in the active spot for like a turn where it can't use that main attack, but you could probably still use Photon Claw in that turn. I don't know. A lot of these event Pokemon don't end up being that good. I could see this seeing some use. I feel like it's definitely it'll be difficult to get that attack off, but not impossible. Like there's definitely ways. Another way, I saw online someone saying like using Steel type and then having Giratina on the bench to get the psychic energy, and then using either Lusamine or Dawn to get that psychic energy onto the Ultra Necrozma. So I think it's definitely possible to make this work. I think it'll be a fun deck. I'm not sure how viable it will be just because of being unreliable with getting that energy. But like discarding 5 cards is pretty insane. So I mean that could be really debilitating, especially against stage 2 decks. If you could get this off before your opponent has time to like evolve their Pokemon, that would be insane. You pretty much just win at that point. So yeah, overall, this set has some really exciting cards. I'm definitely excited to build some of these decks. It's got some that are like kind of whatever, like Zorgatry in there, but not all of them are meant to be winners. And overall, I love the Pokemon Sun and Moon games. I think the Ultra Beasts are like a really cool idea. The designs are like wild, but in the best way possible. So this set definitely has me hyped. I love where the meta is right now, and I hope that this just makes it even better, even more diverse. So let me know what you think. Are you excited for this set? I know a lot of people think that they're releasing too many sets too fast, and it's hard to keep up. As a free-to-play player, I definitely feel that too. But yeah, let me know what you think. Which card are you most excited to play?